Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Yoji. In this video, I will do something new and try something different. This video, I will make a tier list of all the past Path of Exile leagues, but not from a perspective of how did I like the league when I played back then, so it won't be old Grandpa Yoji tells you about how the game was back in the day. Maybe you can do that in another video, leave a comment if you want to see that. But in this video, I want to tell you how I like the current integration of Path of Exile leagues and old league mechanics into the current game as it is of right now in 3.11 from a basically today's Harvest League perspective. So if I encounter a mechanic in a map or in the game, how I like the integration. If I'm like, oh no, not this again, that would be tier F. If I'm like, whatever, guess it exists. Or if it's like an alright mechanic that I'm kind of like okay with having, but I'm not super excited about. A tier would be, well, this is good, I like that it's in the game, I think it's good for the game, or I enjoy interacting with it, or I think maybe it adds good difficulty, or it's just something that it's enjoyable to have. And S tier would be, every time I see it, I love doing it, every time I have the opportunity to engage with it, I'm happy to do so, and I think it's really healthy and really good for the game, add something of value to the game in some point or some form. And I will include everything that is encompassed in that league mechanic, so not only the mechanic, the mods, mobs, the monsters, whatever itself, but also all the crafting that is part of it, everything that belongs to the league, and what it adds to the current game. And with that, let's get started. So let's start just from the beginning in alphabetical order, not in the order. Like the first league would have been Onslaught, but we're gonna start with Abyss. Or maybe we start in order, but I don't really know the order. No, let's start with Abyss. So Abyss League is these cracks that open in maps, spawn a lot of mobs. Sometimes you go underground, there's a lich. You have Abyss Jewels, which I still think are really cool. I think the Abysses in the maps are really fun. And I think the Lich encounters are fun, the Abyss Uniques are pretty cool. I think overall Abyss is actually pretty damn good. It's a very simple league, but it's a really good league, in my opinion. Like, as a league, it was probably also fun. I didn't actually play it. It's actually the only league I completely missed. So I would say it's probably an A tier, maybe even an S tier. I think it's like on the brink to S tier, because Abyss sockets are really cool. There's like a lot of cool stuff here in Abyss. So I think Abyss is A+ or S-. We'll see. I'll maybe shuffle them around a little bit afterwards. Ambush, strong boxes. When they came out, they were really cool. So it's the strong boxes you open in maps and they have like kind of like cool stuff in it. Some of them are really rewarding, but I don't want to judge how rewarding and how good they are to do or how much currency you can make from them. That's not what I want to judge. I want to judge how enjoyable they are and how good I think they are currently for the game. I think strong boxes are kind of alright, but compared to other leagues, I think they've fallen off a bit. So maybe they're in the alright tier, maybe they're in the meh tier. Like, I'm not, like, when I see a strongbox in a map, I'm not at all excited about it anymore, other than Diviners, not even Katos anymore, other than Diviners and kind of Arcanists. So I think strongboxes are more closer to the meh tier for me currently than they are in the alright tier. But it is something that is not complicated to interact with, so they don't really steal your time. They add a lot of mobs, so it's kind of like pack size, which is always fun. I think they're somewhere between the alright and the meh tier, so let's go with the meh tier and see what else goes there. Maybe it will be bumped up. Alright, Anarchy, Exiles. I don't mind seeing them, but I don't really feel they add anything anymore. They are so weak that they don't really do much. They drop a bunch of rares, can be kind of nice while leveling. The difficulty they add is very, very low, though, currently. They are kind of like pushovers. I'm pretty torn between not this again, because they're like, exiled, whatever. Sometimes you don't even notice them. Like, they're not annoying, but they don't think they add much to the game as of currently. So I'm going to put them in the F tier. I don't think... They definitely add less than strong boxes. So I'm definitely less excited to see an exile than I'm ever going to see, like, be a strong box. So strong box, sometimes I'm excited. Exile, I'm never excited. By the way, it kind of crangled the text here. Bestiary. Bestiary is a bit tricky, so you see beasts and maps. They can be kind of difficult and actually have enough HP to be a challenge. So unlike exiles, they add mob interaction, but the mods of them, they're mostly really unfun. The bosses are kind of alright, they're kind of cool. Beast crafting, the crafting outcomes I think are really good, like the stuff you can get from it is really cool, but the beasts themselves, the whole like shrine, you go into the shrine, summon the mobs, kill them, it's like super boring in my opinion. So it's kind of like, it adds something of value with like the crafts and stuff, but even as a master especially, I think they're maybe like overdoing Bestiary. I think Bestiary might might be one of the things that we could do without. But they need to add like the remove suffix, add prefix, or imprint crafts. Flask crafts of bestiary are really cool for SSF. So the crafts are really cool, but everything else I kind of like I'm not really interested in. They could maybe add some of the beast mobs just randomly into maps, and that would be better. Alright, Betrayal. I think Betrayal is one of the coolest mechanics. You actually have to like think and learn the mechanic to shift around on the stuff on the board to get the maximum rewards out of it. The encounters are still challenging, still difficult. They can still one-shot you and still do a lot of damage, and you still have to watch out for them. You still have to interact with them. You still have to, if you have a slow build or your build is not quite up to par yet, you struggle with the research, for example, you can actually fail it as well. So I think Betrayal actually is holding up insanely well, and the rewards also still hold up very well, and it does take time to interact with, but its time is very much worth it. I think the Katarina encounter is a bit okay-ish. If you count Unveiling into Betrayal, I think it's like an F. Unveiling is F. For me, it's like one of the worst things in the game. It's just not fun, it's super stupid, it's a grind, it's dumb, but you need this stuff, so you have to do it. If you don't count Unveiling, I would be here. I would be Betrayal is I pog every time I see it. John is one of the best masters. His rewards are great. They're interesting. They're cool to interact with. The fights are at least interesting, or at least somewhat challenging. But because Unveiling is part of it, I would say Betrayal might be an A. It's just good. Because Unveiling... But if you see it from, like, decoupled from Unveiling, which you could totally decouple it from Unveiling, I would say it as an S tier. So let's put it in S tier and just say Unveiling is F tier. Or, like, below Z tier. White, like down here tier, like completely like shit tier. All right, Beyond. I think Beyond is not very interesting, but pack size is always fun. Beyond uniques are kind of whatever. There's nothing else really to the league. It's just pack size. It's basically Beyond is basically a little bit more interesting pack size with some bosses, which can sometimes be challenging if you're running very rippy map mods. So I would say somewhere between good and alright. So put in alright. I would say it's not too interesting though. Blight. I think I like Blight as a league, and I like the Cassia encounters. I felt during Blight League, they were sometimes a bit too... was sometimes getting a bit tedious, because when you have it every map, but now that you find it in every 10 maps, and if you want more content of this, you can do Blighted maps which drop from it, and Anoints are really cool as well. I think this is kind of a good one. I think the Blight uniques, there are also some really nice Blight uniques. I mean, Badge of the Brotherhood is one of the most powerful and cool and most used amulets right now. So I think it's even more expensive than Headhunter right now. So I think Blight is actually pretty well implemented. When I personally see it, so it's a personal tier list. This is a Yoji tier list. This is not a you kind of, how do you say this, like what I think everyone should think tier list. This is like a Yoji tier list. So I would say Blight's probably IPOC every time. When I see it, I like it. I really like the encounters. They break up mapping very nicely. But yeah, I would say Blighted maps are also pretty fun, and you can avoid them if you don't want to do them. I think Blight is probably S tier implementation. I don't think you could have implemented it any better, basically. And I still like the mechanic. I think it still adds value. You could argue for A tier definitely, but then it would be before Abyss. And Strongboxes, Bestiary. I think Strongboxes and Bestiary are kind of like even. So yeah, I would say Blight before Abyss, or Blight up here. I think Blight before Abyss is fine. Alright, Bloodlines. Bloodlines is basically a map mod right now. Nothing more, nothing less. It makes all magic enemies have a Bloodlines mod, which is like Corrupting Blood, Bearers, and some of the less noticeable ones, such as, what's it called? Union of Souls, where they soul eat each other and stuff like that. So I think it's good that it's in the game. It's like a good map mod. It's not more, not less. It's a good map mod. I think it's alright. It might even actually be good. You could put it in good, but it's probably more alright. And having it as a Zana mod is also kind of nice, because it adds magic mobs, which is always, like, it's actually worth doing. I'd say it's probably between alright and good. It might actually be good. It adds good difficulty. It adds interesting difficulty to the game. So I think that's cool. Alright, Breach. Breach I actually still enjoy. The Breach zones are still fun to run. Breach uniques are holding up incredibly well. It's actually worth farming them in SSF, for example. Some of the Breach uniques are even like Chase uniques, for example, the Pandemonious Amulet. The boss fights are still, I think, pretty alright. They're holding up pretty well. They're a lot easier now that we are, like, as characters, more powerful. But it's still really fun to run them. The breaches, when I see breaches in map, I'm still pretty excited. Of course, breach zones have been too devalued now that to be worth picking up all the splinters all the time. Because one breach zone is like 5 chaos, so one splinter is like less than a chaos shard, so it's not worth picking those up anymore. But you get full breach stones, and they're pretty cool. And I think Breach is holding up incredibly well, especially for like how old the league is. So I would say Breach probably in S tier. Like whenever I see a Breach in a map, so many monsters, it's really cool. You have a chance to encounter a Breach Lord. Maybe that chance could be a bit higher. Chayula can always like one-shot you randomly if your Chaos Res is bad, so that adds an extra challenge and extra gearing strain on the character that is kind of interesting. I think that's pretty good. So I think Breach is pretty much Pog every team. Alright. Delirium. Delirium, actually, the league itself, I didn't like. Kind of had the Blight problem, where if you encountered every map, it gets tedious, and it's very stressful, and it's very difficult, but it still felt like you had to interact with it every single time, because it's so rewarding. So now what I think about Delirium in the current state, I think it's pretty good. Also the implementation that it becomes more common in maps. Once you juice the maps more, you can actually like make a decision against and for Delirium. So if you want to juice your map to the maximum, have as many monsters as possible and farm its most insane maps, that's when you get Delirium. People who enjoy running maps as packed as possible are probably the people who also enjoy Delirium. So the implementation is actually Omega Smart 5-head. And encountering it every like whatever maps, we don't really know the rate, I personally think is super fine and super good and a good implementation. Whenever I see it, I'm hyped, and it adds a really interesting... I have itchy nose. It adds a super interesting map once in a while where you have to like rush. But if you don't have to do it all the time, it's really cool. The bosses are cool, the cluster jewels are fantastic. I think cluster jewels are one of the best things. That alone, cluster jewels alone, especially now that they're buffed a bit again, for me are S tier, no doubt. Delve, for me, one of the easiest S tiers. The league itself was one of the best things. I still love delving. Whenever I go into delve, I still like it. It's still really enjoyable. It's really nice to not having to roll maps for a while, not having to worry about sustain. Just whenever your meter is full, like you have like 10k, 20k, 30k, however much juice sulfide stuff you have, you just go in there, you delve. The bosses are still interesting if you see them. They might be a bit too rare, but overall it's pretty cool. Fossils are actually still holding up, are still cool. So yeah, I think just like delving itself, it's a nice mechanic, and I actually enjoy doing it and clearing the content itself, even if it didn't have rewards. The experience is good as well, so if you just want to blast through delves without rolling maps for a while, yeah, it's still good and still rewarding enough as well that the delve cities are still pretty good. Domination Shrines, yeah, it's the stuff that adds the shrines with the buffs to the maps. It's also in the labyrinth. There are also dark shrines that give you permanent shrine buffs, and I think Domination, as in shrines, I think it's still alright. It's probably, I would say it's probably a bit more interesting than Beyond, because you can steal the buffs sometimes. Having the buffs is really fun as well, like having an echoing shrine, having a massive shrine, whatever. That stuff's really fun. Being invincible by Divine Shrine is really fun. I think the Divine Shrine is kind of like problematic in the sense that it lags you when it exists, but yeah, I think it's pretty good. Also, some of the unique stuff, like the Gull, for example, is still a really good unique. Might even be a good league, but yeah, it's kind of somewhere between good and alright. I feel like it's probably more in the alright, but definitely before Beyond for me. And as I said, not just in the fun and enjoyment part, but also like how I think it's good for the game. And I think Beyond is a bit boring. Essences, crafting. I think essence crafting is not held up very well. Also, I think the essence mobs are incredibly boring and not all that challenging anymore. And like clicking on them and stuff is like a bit annoying as well. You can't craft them like strong boxes, and they're just like, I don't know. Essence crafting, for me, especially like this league compared to harvest crafting, essence crafting is just like, poof. Like I do use like maybe like 5, 10, 12 essences a league to like craft something. I never can't be bothered to buy them in like bulk. Same with like fossils. I just use the ones I find usually. Sometimes I sell them if they're like worth incredible amounts. But yeah, there's like insanity gloves, some build defining stuff happening. I think it's probably in the alright here. I don't think it's good. I think it's alright. Essence crafting and like the crafting and like the whole essence mobs themselves, they're okay to be there. Harbingers. I think Harbingers, encountering them in maps is really fun. They spawn a lot of packs. I think the Beachhead map is still a cool, fun, kind of interesting maps, just like monsters, not actual bosses, which is kind of like, which is different than what we normally get. Normally, like a map has always a boss. The boss here is just lots of Harbies. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I kind of like the uniques that you have to puzzle together, the unique pieces, but they are a bit rare to like actually farm up in the current state of the game because with how rare Beachhead is. I like the currency orbs. Annulment was one of the best things ever added to the game. Horizon orbs are really cool as well, even though they didn't work with the current Atlas for a while. I actually don't think they still... I think they still just reroll within the base tier, but I'm not 100% on that. Maybe they work now. I haven't actually tried them, so maybe that's actually an argument against them, because I haven't really tried them, so apparently you don't use them. Harvey Orbs, like map sustain currently is so easy, you just kind of don't need them anymore, I feel. So yeah, I think maybe Harbinger's not that great. I guess they kind of go in the meh tier. They do add pack size. I mean, they can't be like, they add pack size and that's it. So they can't really be worse than... Can they be worse than Beyond? Maybe Beyond is overrated by me right now. Beyond is just extra mobs. It's nothing else. So maybe I'd have to rank Beyond down. I think Harvey is definitely better than strong boxes, and they're definitely better than beasties. I mean, what beasties add is cool. Like, the currency shards are, like, super annoying as well. The packs are cool. Like, having extra pack. But pack size doesn't really count. So maybe... I think Harbingers might be in the meta. I don't think they're, like, super useless. Maybe they are super useless. Like, just adding extra packs and nothing else would actually be... I mean, there are no bosses. Beyond has the bosses, which are interesting. So yeah, Harbinger... maybe Harbinger isn't all that great, to be honest. Beachhead is cool. Just keep Beachhead. But definitely better than Exiles. Alright, Harvest. Harvest goes to the end. I want to talk a little bit about Harvest in the end, but obviously it's not implemented yet, so I don't really know how it is implemented. Incursion League. I think Incursion League currently is cool. Like, getting into the incursions in the maps, I think is fun. Building the temple, some interaction there, but once you kind of like got the system, it's not very challenging to think about. You just like you have like your plan in head, and you know which room you prefer over which room, and you just like go, open doors, kill dudes. But it's a lot of mobs. It's really fun. It's not just like pack size, but you actually get to a new zone. You have to like rethink, clear it as fast as possible. I think it's still kind of fun. It's not that challenging anymore, but it's still kind of fun. Put some chaos res gearing stress on the build as well. I think the temple is alright, still holding up. Alright, it's not that rewarding for some people, but there are some, like if you're like super blasting juiced maps, not that rewarding, but it's still worth adding Alva because they add so much pack. So if you're running a super juiced map or like a Delirious map, it's very worth adding Alva, because Alva has so much pack size, which is good for the Delirium, right? So it interacts really well with other leagues, I feel, and there's still a lot to be gained. There's like sacrifice uniques, which is interesting. There's some rooms which are interesting, like Double Corruption, for example, is one of the most unique rooms, really cool. Some of the temple uniques are cool, like the Slave Driver gloves. There's the jewels, the what's called Tempered Fevered and so on, Mind and Flesh. So I would say Incursion, somewhat. I think it's all right. I don't think it's good. What's like, these are just like more fun to interact with, I feel. Incursion. What's more fun? Like, this is fun to like kill the mobs and interact with. Incursion. Bloodlines is good because nice because of the difficulty. Incursion does add some difficulty. Maybe it is good. Somewhere between good and alright. Let's put it like in the beginning of alright for now. Alright, invasion bosses. They are basically the Val area side bosses now, and like we can add them with like prophecy and stuff. I think they might as well not be in the game. They're like very unchallenging right now. Like whenever you see a Val boss, you just like boosh into him and he dies. That's basically it. So yeah, I think Invasion, the league itself used to be really cool back then because they were really challenging. But they're kind of like Anarchy, have not power crept very well. They're like unique mobs that just feel like weak rares. Doesn't really work anymore. Legion, I think Legion is pretty cool. Legion, the monolith, clicking it, I think the presentation of Legion, which like the flashing monolith, stuff spawns frozen in time, you crash it open. I just love like how it feels and like the presentation of it. I think that is really, really cool. I love the domain of Timeless Conflict. I love the Timeless Jewels. I think the Timeless Keystones are an incredibly cool addition to the game. I like those, especially now with so many added to the passive trees. One of the best things to ever happen to PoE, and they are all from Legion. So with that alone, Legion's integration to the game, I think, is pork jam. Whenever I see a Legion encounter, I love it. It's very challenging. They're very difficult. They're very rippy. The bosses are actually fun to do as well. Like one of the cooler bosses to be able to spawn into a map. I think I'm always excited when I see it. I think this is really good. Metamorph. I personally love Metamorph League. It's one of my favorite leagues. Maybe the favorite, kind of like somewhere with Delve. And what I like about it, challenging fights. I think the reward system is really good. They are very rewarding. They're very worth doing, even though they are really risky. Even if you make a really tanky character, the one thing I'm always worried about dying is a Metamorph. And whenever I I'm high level, I'm close to leveling, let's say I'm level 97, about to level to 98 or something like this, and I do a Metamorph even in softcore, I'm like, my hands are getting sweaty, alright? So, I think this is really good. And with that, the rewards are there. What I don't like is Thane's Lab, like collecting the organs, like super annoying and like micromanagey. For me personally, just add the Metamorphs as a 10% thing to the, and as scarabs to the mapping system. Just make them not drop organs. Nobody needs that. Yes, there are extra rewards. Maybe bump up the rewards by like a few percent for the base map Metamorphs. The lab organ dudes, like the put together Metamorphs, never were really challenging anyways compared to the map mod guys, so I think that would have been alright. But it's still super fun. Whenever I see it, I pog every time when I see Metamorph. When I see like the icons on the minimap, and even just seeing monsters and bosses on the minimap. That alone as an addition. Please add that as a core feature. Alright, next up we have Nemesis. I think Nemesis is the same as Bloodlines. Next, and it gave us Headhunter. Onslaught. Easiest. Excuse me. Easiest F tier. It's just speed on mobs. It's a buff on players. It exists. It's not like... You can't really rate this. It makes stuff smaller. It's kind of like... As a league mechanic, like as a full league, obviously is shit. But like monsters being fast is not bad. I guess it's like kind of like the same as Bloodlines. It's like you can't even rate this. Just put it here. All right, Piranhas. I think Piranhas actually held up quite horribly over the years. The Piranhas chas mobs are kind of like a pushover right now. They're just like annoying, weird, resurrecting monsters, so I kind of think like they go kind of like in a meh tier. Cardero Piranhas and the finicky picking up the micromanagey huge stacks of thousands of coins, and then you find a Cardero that sells your shafts. I had this league, and it like even though you picked up like lots of these and you ran scarabs and whatnot, and you have like 5,000 coins, the first time you find something of value, it will cost like triple what you have or whatever, and you still have to buy the coins. Like, I don't know. Not a huge fan. I think this like didn't hold up very well. So I think it might as well not be in the game. Just keep the uniques, keep the map, maybe the unique map. And that's kind of it. For me personally, nah, I don't need Piranhas anymore. Prophecy. So Prophecy is kind of a difficult one. It's like the silver coins, you go to Navali, trade them in, stuff happens in the map. I think that still is kind of cool. Like, it adds interesting stuff to the mapping system, but like micromanaging and clicking them and like remembering clicking them is annoying me to death. So I think the implementation itself is poor, even though the mechanic is still kind of alright. So I guess it's somewhat between alright and not this again, so I think it's a meh. It's not horrible. I think with like a little bit of tweaking, maybe making it a little bit more user-friendly or whatever, like maybe instead of just finding coins, you just like, or whenever you pick up a coin, it just adds a prophecy to your wheel or whatever, or maybe just like every now and then you encounter Navali in a map, and when you click on her, she adds like a random prophecy to you or whatever. Just like make it less, you have to think about this every single map, whatever. Make it more RNG based, and then yeah, just let it happen in the background as like extra features. And whenever you have a prophecy where like, I don't want this prophecy, for example, then you can like use maybe coins or whatever, like stored up prophecy energy to like seal them away if you don't want them. For example, let's say you have unique mobs in this map, and in one of the next maps you encounter are all ghosted, but you really want to run this Uber-Ziri right now, and you don't want to run ghosted Uber-Ziri because that's like super stupid, so you can like seal it away, right? That will kind of make sense. Okay, next one, Rampage, kill count. I guess it's kind of alright. Honestly, so how do you get Rampage these days is you have uniques from the Rampage League, they give you Rampage. Rampage is basically a kill counter, and the more kills you have to get like a slight buff to like, I think it's attack speed, movement speed. And honestly, I think, personally, it's actually pretty fun to have. Like, having a kill counter in PoE maybe could even be a core feature, of course, maybe without the buff. But honestly, I think Rampage is kind of like a cool thing to have. I think the reason why they didn't make this just like a permanent core feature, because many ARPGs have just kill counters as a main feature, is because it had like performance effects, and they didn't want to enable it permanently for everyone, like they did in Rampage League. So yeah, but I think it actually holds up kind of alright, and it's still pretty fun. Like, my personal opinion. Synthesis. Alright, so Synthesis didn't get added to the core game in its full scope. The crafting didn't get added, and the memory nexus didn't get added. And also the synthesis zones, kind of like the Incursion type zones themselves, where you have to go in to collect the fragments, also did not get added. What did get added is unique maps that are kind of like similar to some of the zones you could encounter in the Nexus, and the boss fights. And that's it. and the uniques with the boss fight. So the rings, I think the rings are really cool uniques. I think the Bottle Faith is cool. The gloves are cool. Actually, like most of the uniques are at least interesting. Most of them are build defining, and most of them are really cool. And also that they have kind of like some random implicits that they can roll, and also have some pretty interesting unique properties, I think makes for a really cool overall like concept that we currently have in the game. The Memory Nexus I personally did not interact with much. During the first month of Synthesis League, it was very buggy, really annoying, crashed a lot, was horrible, unfun to interact with. And the whole synthesis crafting for me was just, I didn't really get to the point before I quit the league, because I didn't like the zones where like they kicked you out when you run into the blue stuff and they like crept in. I found that super annoying. I didn't like the Nexus in the beginning. So I quit the league before and went to play standard SSF during the time. Before I even got to like experience the revamped version. I think it was like of week 5 of the league, so that patch was way too late. But the current stuff that we have in the game actually I think is really good. Maybe even Pog. Because the current implementation of Synthesis is the bosses. I think they are some of the nicest and coolest bosses we currently have in the game. The uniques are super interesting, super fun. Fracturing is cool, that we now get with Harvest. Synthesis implicits are really interesting as well, now that we have them with Harvest. Just kind of like a side thing and a side gamble. Are kind of like cool to have. So I think Synthesis current implementation is probably somewhere here, more than here. And we'll have to like sort them in the end as well. But yeah, I think Synthesis is probably close to Pog. Maybe it's even like at the end of Pog. We'll see. But it's like S or A tier. Talisman, I think Talisman might as well be removed from the game at this point. You can't anoint them. They're like super Omega bad. Maybe Piranhas is better than Exiles. Talismans are like super bad. I think the only way Talismans can be in the game is there's a crafting bench, research, Jorgen and research and Betrayal that allows you to switch a current amulet into a talisman, keeping the anoint, keeping the stats, and you just like change the implicit into a talisman implicit, and it corrupts it. I think that is fantastic. Everything else, if it was for me, can be gone, because even if you find a good one, a good talisman, it still doesn't have an anoint. It's kind of like very hard to balance. I think they're not that great. Kind of like Breach Rings from Breach, no one who remembers them. So I think they are like horrible. And everything else from Talisman has not been added, except for like the Rigwald boss as a map boss. Is one of the more annoying map bosses, so I'm not really a fan either. So yeah, Tempest League is actually a league I loved as a league mechanic when it was out, because back then it was like super interesting, super fun for me personally to like chase the Tempest. So what you did, you had to like chase the Tempests around in maps. So every hour for 1 hour, one map would be infected or affected by one Tempest. Currently we only have these as a temple mod, and if it was for me, they could remove that temple thing. It's just like, and as prophecies. But yeah, I think they don't really add much to the game personally. I think they're one of the more boring prophecies. So yeah, ghosts, I think ghosts are super annoying, and what especially made me realize how bad ghosts are. Currently in Harvest, there's a way you can enchant a map that a unique map boss, or like a map boss, like the boss of the map, is surrounded by ghosts. So that will usually lead to, if you leave it a little bit of time with the mobs, so you go into the room, let all the ghosts go into the boss will be ghosted by like a crap ton of ghosts. Same you can do with the Alva Temple room with the ghosts, where you can like have the architect be ghosted by lots of ghosts. What then happens is the boss becomes incredibly rippy, because all the ghosts add like speed to it and damage and whatnot, and supposedly they will add quant to the enemy. It's like absolutely not noticeable. If you have a decently strict loot filter, you will not even notice the drops. So I think the ghosts are complete failure, in my personal opinion. Maybe not quite as bad as Talismans, but probably somewhere around here. Warbands. I think the warbands are kind of like glorified exiles. They're not that much interesting. They serve a purpose as map bosses. And they're, as map bosses, at the power level of map bosses, they are quite noticeable. So maybe they're better than exiles. Some of the warbands uniques are kind of alright as well, but I think warbands might, like, I guess as map bosses they're cool. Okay, let's keep that as the map, because they serve the purpose of map boss. Better than the invasion bosses serve the purpose of a Valside area boss. And then we have Harvest. Alright, yeah, for Harvest League, I already made a huge video. I will link that after this one as well. Where I talked about, I want the crafting to go core, basically, in some fashion. maybe replace the current crafting system, but I don't think the garden, for me personally, I don't really enjoy the gardening too much. It's cool, alright, meh, I don't know, it's probably meh to me, the gardening. It exists, it's okay to engage with, but I don't want to do it all the time. It's just not for me personally. And that comes from someone who loves to play games like Stardew Valley or other like farming type games. I actually enjoy them, but I just think the farming in Path of Exile is not done very well. It could be either more involved or more, I don't know, less. It's not difficult, but it's a bit tedious. You just have to set it up in a way and build like tons of the same structures, storages, whatever, in an efficient way, and that's kind of it. I'm not a huge fan, but I like the outcomes. I think the crafting is really cool. I think the boss fight is also not very interesting, though. The Harvest boss fight is not that great, but the crafting, superb. I think it's the best crafting system PoE ever had, and I hope we can keep it in some way. Maybe a little bit less powerful, but not completely bad. So we'll leave Harvest down here for now, because it's kind of like unrateable at this point. I just left it in so I can talk a bit about Harvest. Alright, let's see. I think Betrayal probably is still my favorite. Close, followed by Delve, Delirium. Delirium is probably better just because... it's difficult. I love Delve. I love doing Delve more than I love doing Delirium, but I like Cluster Jewels more than anything that Delve added. Alright, I think Legion is better version of Breach in maps mostly, and Metamorpho, I think, is probably here. A little bit before. I think that might be my S tier. Synthesis, I think, is really good. It's almost back here. Maybe because it's a little bit too rare. But when I see it, I actually pog every time. But I just don't pog enough. Maybe that's why. I think Blight, Abyss might be the other way around. I like Abyss Jewels and that stuff more. Onslaught is just here for... This is just here for memes. I think they are good map mods. They work as map mods, alright? Good. I think Incursion... I think Incursion is pretty cool. It's alright, I don't mind it. I like running temples every now and then. Sometimes I wish I wouldn't have to run the temple to add more alvas to my maps. Because sometimes I just don't want to run a temple. Sometimes I even open it, just run like through to the boss in hopes to get a vial, and that's it. Domination. Having shrines and maps is kind of cool. It's alright, it's interactive. I like it. Essence crafting is a bit fallen off, especially compared to like Delve crafting. But I sometimes use it, so it's here. I actually enjoy Rampage more than I would have thought. So yeah, that makes sense. I think strongboxes are cool. I like strongboxes a bit more than beasts, to be honest, which is, like I said, this is like super involved system. This is like click a box. I like click a box more. This is just pack size, like super uninspired. This is like more interesting pack size than this, so let's add this. Even though the bosses are kind of alright. They're actually holding up pretty well. And Prophecy just needs a revamp, but I think it's still keepable in the game. Maybe it's like a less finicky system. Harbinger's pack size and annoying currency charts, but the actually base currency is pretty cool. Also, the Harbinger and Uniques are pretty cool, so maybe we'll rank it up a tier. Pirandas, I think it's just not holding up anymore. The Uniques are cool, and that's kind of like it. I think everything else can be cut. Anarchy, don't even notice it. I notice Tempest more. Invasion bosses, barely noticeable. Vaal side area bosses are kind of like not that cool. Maybe they could even cut Vaal side areas from maps, to be honest. Even the buffed versions now. It's kind of like a nostalgic thing to have them there. Tempests, one of the less cool rooms. They used to be so cool. Like there used to be some Tempests that were really, really cool. But even like the Magic Find Tempest or the Vaal corrupted drop Tempest is not that cool anymore. I don't even think it got nerfed. I don't know what it is. Maybe loot got buffed so much that you don't notice it. Yeah, ghosts just run away. They don't even go into the freaking thing they need to go into. And they don't really do anything much. I don't know. I think they're just like... could be done without. And Anarchy, yeah, as I said, don't notice it. Talismans, filtered out. The Rigwald boss is even annoying. The Talisman Uniques are also not very interesting, to be honest. The Blight well is kind of alright. The Conversion one is horrible. And the Great Wolf Talisman, that one can have some pretty interesting mods, but I don't think that makes this any better. Alright, I think that's my tier list. If you want, I will share the link to this tier list maker thing that I made below. So you can, if you want, you can link me on Twitter. I'm here. You can see it here. Follow you. It's Yoji with my 2,000 epic followers on Twitter, and you can tweet this tier list at me that you made, and I'll have a look at it and comment it, and probably ask you why you put Torment so high or why you hated Metamorpho or something like this. But I will look at it and I will have some fun joking about your tier list. Alright, thank you very much to all my patrons, as always. Hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know if you enjoyed it or not. Or thumbs up, thumbs down, or just leave a comment, say, Yoji, don't make this shit content anymore. Or Yoji, make more of this shit content. I mean, this great content. This is absolutely not filler content. And yeah, I'm Yoji, and I will see you soon.